Thanks for coming out. I'm not sure I'll need this microphone, but we'll keep it on for the purposes of recording. So, all right. So again, good evening. Thank you for coming here. I know that it's a beautiful night and you're a little concerned. I know it's easy to play hooky when it's so nice out because we know our days are limited as we head into winter, but we do appreciate you being here. I want to just say a couple remarks and then I'm going to turn it over to our speakers. I want everyone to know that we have a very important job to do as educators. And as superintendent of schools, I take it very seriously that we want to ensure that our students are safe, secure, feel safe coming to school, and that they don't have to worry about being harassed, threatened, bullied. We know these behaviors go on. It's not just in Cuyahoga Falls, but it's everywhere, unfortunately. So we want to do what we can to minimize it. But on the other side of it, we also want to make sure that our students are making safe decisions, and that means at school and at home. And so what you're going to hear this evening is a little bit about both. We have recently done an assembly with our middle school and high school students, and maybe your students, if you have them at that age, came home and told you, but many of the same people that you'll hear here tonight were also present at that. And our purpose in was about educating our students, not to threaten, and certainly some of it certainly sounded probably like a threat to a child as you're sitting there, but it really was to educate them about the consequences of their behavior. We no longer in society find it funny to say I'm going to blow up a school or I'm going to shoot up a school. That is not funny. I said that directly to our students, as did the other speakers. We don't think it's a joke, we won't treat it as a joke, and you will be consequenced. And so we showed them from the inception of when that threat is made and how the administrators become involved, the police, perhaps the FBI, the prosecutor, the judge, and we showed them all the way through what the consequences could look like for their behavior. So again, not to scare them, but to educate them on the process of what can happen if we are making threats. So you're going to hear a little bit about that this evening, among, as I mentioned, other topics. So with that, I just want to, again, let you know that our priorities, we have done such a great job with our safety measures and the things that we have done over the past couple of years with the board's support to make some of those critical decisions, and when you're budgeting, prioritizing safety, and I think that we have really done that. Everybody can always improve in every area, but we have done a lot, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done and our staff. So this evening we have with us, it's in the audience, Mr. Hutch is here. He's our Director of Safety, as is over here we have, it's hard to see with the lights, but Chief Norris and Captain Gary Martin from Cuyahoga Falls and Silver Lake. So we're happy that they joined us this evening, both representing both cities. And then your speakers this evening, we will have Mr. Ben Gessford is our Security Supervisor, who has an extensive background in FBI, as well as FBI agent, Special Agent Dirker is here with us, so he's going to speak with you, and SRO Officer Ted Davis, many of you know him, and then we will hear from Ms. Stewart, our communications, community relations coordinator. So she's going to talk to you about communication and what that looks like if there is a crisis. So you're going to hear from all of them. So I'm going to take a seat and let them, I believe it's Mr. Gessford will speak to you first. So thank you again for being here.
All right, good evening. Thank you for coming. I want to thank the board for being here, Dr. Celico, and my police department partners, and especially the parents that took the time to come out tonight. Again, my name is Ben Gessford, and I am your security supervisor for Cuyahoga Falls City Schools. Okay, real quick background on me. Graduated Kent State, spent 8 years as an Army officer, and then just retired recently, 21 years as an FBI special agent. So, and when I got done, I said I'm never doing anything like that again, and here I am. So I'm very grateful to be in this district. It's a very forward-leaning district as far as keeping your kids safe. And what I thought in talking to Dr. Celico is we would have a discussion with the parents, and we would also videotape it, because I want to pull the curtain back a little bit so that you have a general understanding on what we're doing to keep your kids safe here in school. And then I've got my partners in the police department here, my partners with the FBI, and I appreciate their support because they support us every day, day in, day out, no matter what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about what we do here in Cuyahoga Falls. My security philosophy is pretty simple. It's not rocket science. Everything that I do when I look at buying equipment or how are we going to protect our schools, everything I do, I use that simple, how are we going to slow the bad guys down, and how am I going to speed the good guys to get in here, speed them up. That's a very simple philosophy. It covers everything I do when I make budget requests or purchases or look at equipment or how are we going to protect our kids. And so that is key to everything that we do here. Next slide, please. Now this is a fairly busy chart. One of the things that I'm very proud of in this district is I think in the year that I've been here, we received $76,000 in grant money to fortify the schools and to buy additional things that will train our staff, that will work to keep your kids safe. Now, as an old FBI guy, I don't like to give away all my secrets. I like to have some things that I still keep behind the curtain. But there's a couple of things here that I want to mention to you so you understand generally how we do business on a daily basis to slow down the bad guys and speed up the good guys. In the red box, we are constantly working with our staff for situational awareness, visual awareness. We have defense in depth in all of our schools. We are constantly looking. We have a very robust camera system, and we want to know not only what's going on within our schools, but also what's going on around our schools. We have a lot of neighborhood schools, and we like to know what's going on out there that could impact some things on school grounds. And so I work with the staff quite frequently on making sure that they are spending time keeping their head up, our secretaries, our teachers, so that there's situational awareness there. Staff communication in this district is key, and we've done a lot of really great things that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to show you an example of what we have so that we can compare notes as to what's going on, okay? In the blue box, all of my schools are, to get in, it's electronic access. And so I work with the kids at every school. We don't open doors for people we don't know. If we can keep those doors from swinging, then we can slow the bad guys down outside and keep our good guys inside, okay? So you can't get in without electronic access badge. And if the kids help me, and I work with the kids and the staff frequently on, make sure that those doors aren't swinging frequently. This is not a prison. I don't want your kids coming to school in a prison, but it goes with situational awareness, and it goes with protecting our kids on a daily basis. Those doors are electronically accessed. I have monitored panic buttons in every school. What that means is if we have any issues, I have enough buttons that people can hit those fixed buttons and we get a quick 911 call to get the guys over. Now I have redundant comms that we've put in place so that we can get first responders here, and that's in the yellow box. I am constantly evaluating technology with the Director of Security and Technology to see what is better, how can I speed the good guys up? And we've got a lot of things in the school that work very well. For example, we just upgraded some of our radio systems, so now that we can talk across district on special channels. So when I'm at one of my 9 schools, if I need to talk to my SRO, I can simply hit him. I can always hit him on a cell phone, but I can hit him on a radio. I can monitor what's going on there. And so the radio upgrades are very important to us as far as being able to talk in the event of an emergency. Every school, I told you, has panic buttons in place. We also have state-operated MARCS radios. And what that is, that's a one-push radio in all of my offices that goes directly to dispatch. It cuts out time to get the police to us in an emergency. When you hit that button, or when my secretary hits that button, the dispatch automatically hears 15 seconds of what's going on, what discussion's going on, what's happening in that school. It's quicker than dialing 911, and I can get the good guys here even quicker, or where I need to get them, okay? One of the things that you may have read about in the last month when there was a school shooting in Georgia was the school district had mobile panic buttons. Everybody had a mobile panic button on them. We are currently looking at different options. I'm weighing some different options on those mobile panic buttons. I like those, and basically what that is every staff member in the school has almost a card on them that they can push a button, and again, calls 911, we get the good guys in here. But we've also instituted something different than that, because while I believe that that's incredibly important, we have a system where all of our staff have it on their phones, a mobile panic button, and I'll show you what that looks like. But not only can we quickly alert the school to a crisis, or any school, but it lets the superintendent know, it lets me know, it lets the police know, and then we can communicate within that particular app that we're using. So I can tell staff, or the police can tell staff, or we can tell the police what has transpired, what is happening, and we can communicate. And I'll talk a little bit about that real quick, but I am all about communicating with the good guys and cutting down that time to get the police to our buildings, okay? Yes, ma'am, you got a question?
Yeah, quick question. When we're talking about cutting down time,
Yeah.
sometimes seconds matter.
Absolutely.
What's the difference in timing from having that button that you can push that you're wearing
Sure.
versus grabbing a phone, pulling it out of a pocket? Do you have to open, is it
Yeah.
on their cell phones, opening it up, typing in a security code?
Yeah, so you
seconds.
could go anywhere from, I mean, I don't want to speculate, but it could be upwards of 20 seconds. And a lot of us know that fine motor skills in a panic situation go completely out the window, okay? And so it's difficult to dial. So that is why I have so many redundant things in place and so many different ways to get a hold of the good guys. And I will continue to research what is the best thing that we can use and the quickest thing. The thing I love about Silver Lake PD and Cuyahoga Falls PD is those guys are always around, okay? Maybe that's not so great, but they are always around, and I love them because anytime I have an issue, I sit knee to knee with our SRO, our school resource officer, and you're gonna hear from him tonight. I sit knee to knee with him. And we often compare notes as to what's going on, how are we going to handle this threat, who do we need to know. I've got experience with the FBI. I have a direct line to Kurt Dirker, who's in charge of the Akron FBI office. And he and I have worked together for years, so I can talk the talk. We can get an FBI perspective on what's going on. And so we have a very unique, very valuable piece of the district, and you should feel very comfortable about that, and I'm very pleased with the relationship we have, and that's the green box there, is close and continuing. That's very important to me, that, I mean, these guys are here all day, every day when I need them, for anything. So when we tell you, when we put a message out that says we've talked to them, you better believe we've talked to them, because that's my first phone call. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, let me talk about some terminology that your kids may know. This is what I train our staff on, okay? And we have 3 different types of lockdowns that I want you to be aware of in the district, and this is how we talk internally. Place and secure is a lockdown. It is our most benign lockdown. Basically what happens in a place and secure is we will call a place and secure, the doors will lock, the kids will be ushered into rooms. However, teaching will continue. A lot of times we will call a place and secure when we have an administrative need to keep the hallways clear, or if we need to get a particular staff member or child out of a particular classroom without making a big to-do. A lot of times we will use it for medical emergencies when I need to keep the hallways clear, okay? The place and secure, that's the terminology we use for a very benign lockdown. We will call that from time to time. Next slide, please. Now, we also have a regular lockdown. This is not necessarily an active shooter lockdown, which is our 3rd type of lockdown. This type of lockdown we will use in conjunction where there's a threat, a perceived threat to my staff or my kids or to my buildings, and we may call a lockdown. We may call a lockdown based on what law enforcement recommends, because it may not necessarily mean there is something that is impacting our schools, but it may be impacting the neighborhood where our schools are. And so we need to protect the kids, and the kids need to get into a hide position with the teacher, and until we better understand the nature of the threat, and until we feel more comfortable that the police are comfortable with what's going on. But we may call lockdown if that's the case, okay? And then finally, active shooter lockdown. Nobody ever likes to talk about these things. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about them, and we will, and we do. we differentiate between a lockdown and an active shooter lockdown because there may be something going on outside the school that I need to lock the school down. Okay, there may be something going on at another school in the district or another school in the city or a building in the city, Taco Bell, for example, that would have happened during the daytime, then I need to lock down the school until we feel that the kids are safe, okay? An active shooter lockdown is differentiated in we have information, whether we're hearing gunfire, or we're getting threat reporting from my law enforcement partners that something is coming our way, or we're experiencing it. That is something that we try to convey to our staff that that's going on, because I don't want any surprises, because I told you communication is key for us in surviving these types of events, okay? And the more information that I can push to my staff, the better they can protect your kids. And so with an active shooter lockdown, we may modify how we do things. For example, in this district, it's a very simple, excuse me, we teach run, hide, fight, okay? If you are, and this is good for any of you, wherever you are, run and separate yourself from the immediate danger, okay? But that's not easy to do when you have 20 kindergartners with you, correct? So we have to keep that in mind, that running may not be the best option. We have excellent fortified buildings. My staff knows what to do in a situation, whether that's put the children in a safe spot away from the door when the door is locked and closed, or do we put those kids in a different location under the window if the threat is outside. And so we try to convey that information so that our staff can react as best they can in a terrible situation. Next slide, please. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, another question. So I just want to make sure I hear correctly. So any instance of an active shooter that we, it's terrible we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's important that we do.
Yeah.
So let's say, for instance, an active shooter is up in the 300s.
Yep.
And we have children obviously all over the building. Are our children in the 400s cafeteria gym, are they going to quote unquote run or escape, get out of the building?
So when we're talking about we're talking about different age groups, so if you're talking about the high school, we encourage the kids to get away from the threat, okay? And if that means if they feel that they can safely do that, okay? That poses all kind of interesting logistical problems, and it can be dangerous if you don't know where you're running, okay? So what I encourage my staff and my kids to do is to get into a location where it's safe and they can barricade the door, turn the lights off and be quiet, and these guys are gonna be there very, very fast, okay? It's a timing game, right? The sooner somebody in an active shooter situation, as soon as that perpetrator pulls the trigger, he's on the clock. Whether we eliminate that threat or that, and I don't want to get into that too much, but if the kids can get away safely, get away. We will find you later, okay? And I'll talk a little bit about how we do that. But those are the things, when we have our drills, those are the things we drill on. That's not as easy to do with my little nugs down in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, okay? And so I have to train that staff a little differently in how we do things. And if they're outside, do we need to bring them back inside quickly? Do they need to run to the church across us? So that's a very difficult thing to ask a teacher to do with young ones.
How's that information then communicated? You have an active shooter in the 300s.
Mm-hmm.
Do all of the staff get an alert, active shooter in the 300s?
Funny you should ask. Funny you should ask. This is called Raptor Alert. This is what not all, because I cannot mandate all my staff to put it on their phone, but I can tell you 99% of them do. And if they don't have it on their phone, they have it on their laptop. It's not an option to use Raptor Alert. It's an option to put it on your phone, and they all understand the seriousness of. So I love Raptor Alert, okay? It's technology, and technology can tend to get wonky in a crisis situation, but we've tested and tested and tested, and I feel very comfortable. This is a very interesting thing. You can see the buttons looking at you up there with active shooter alert, lockdown. So my people carry that on their phones, and anybody in the district can call an alert depending on what they see. Everyone is empowered to call an alert depending on what the circumstance is. And so the way these are set up, all of my schools, I've got 9 schools, I've got central office, I've got operations, but my staff carry this on the phone so that they can quickly call a lockdown, which goes out to everybody, and then it gives those folks, it gives them an audible alert. We have an audible siren in some of my buildings. Some of my buildings, my elementary schools, have very soft, like, please go to lockdown protocol. It sounds like that because I don't want to scare the little kids. But everybody knows what's going on, and that I love that. So that's a mobile panic button that everybody has, no matter where they are. But it also has several other really cool features. So not only can you immediately call a lockdown, but then you can immediately do a one-button push to 911 and let them know what's going on, where the thing is happening. You can actually push your location and they can see where the issue is. Once these guys come in and do what they got to do, the really cool thing about this is, well, and as the threat is unfolding, we can communicate on this. There are 2 communication channels that my staff, I can talk to them and let the staff know what is happening. I have an administrative channel that I can go right to the superintendent and let her know some things that are happening, because she's going to need to know exactly what's going on. And it's monitored by our police. Our police have the same thing, and so they're seeing the communication that goes back and forth. So there's communication on this, and it's silent for obvious reasons. I want people to be as quiet as possible during this. And then a really neat thing that this does is all of our class rosters are on this, so we can start accounting for children by name. So that teacher's going to let us know that the teacher's okay, they're in room 101, and they start ticking off kids, so we know if kids are missing because they ran. We know if kids are accounted for, if they're absent that day. That's a very big part of that, is accountability. And then the best thing about this is we can use this to reunify your children with you at the end of the day. Okay? After we've eliminated the threat, after the police have released the scene back to us, we have a very robust plan to get your children to a safe, private place. We will use this system to turn your children in an orderly fashion back over to you. Okay? Next slide, please. Okay, threats. Just very quickly. Threats are very tricky, okay? But I will tell you this, every threat is investigated. Every threat, okay? I don't care what it is. If somebody says it looks like we've got another Russian guy that's claiming he's going to blow up 6 schools across the nation or 32 schools across the nation, we're still going to take a look at that and see how dangerous is that to Cuyahoga Falls, okay? How are we going to do that? I have threat teams that get together, including myself, including the superintendent, including the police. We are all right there. I pick up the phone and call Supervisory Special Agent Dirker. He says, hey Ben, we saw this in 3 different states already. This is a hoax threat. You guys are probably okay to get the kids back to doing what they got to do, okay? So that we investigate every threat, but we classify them differently, okay? If it's a vague, indirect, clearly a hoax based on what law enforcement believes, based on what we know, then we're probably going to put the kids back in and get them back to work because we feel comfortable that things are okay. It's those direct, believable threats, such as somebody says, hey, I'm sick and tired of Mr. Gessford, so I'm going to put a bomb under his chair tomorrow at 3 o'clock, okay? That is a very specific, articulable threat. That's not something that's been banging around 15 states and trying to shut schools down. So we triage every threat, but we also have different ratings and further discussion with law enforcement on how are we going to respond to that threat. And then ultimately we give our recommendations to the superintendent, who will let you guys know. Now, it takes us a little bit of time sometimes, okay? Because sometimes it's a social media threat that was forwarded by somebody else. We got to figure out where it originated. Threats can be difficult. Please give us a little bit of time. We're working on them very diligently, and we will let you know what we find, okay? And if we feel like it's not a threat, we'll tell you it's not a threat. If I need to go to the superintendent and say, hey, we need to consider shutting down or maybe taking a day off, then we'll take the day off, okay? But it's not that we will never not look at a threat. We look at every threat. Next slide. Okay.
What do you do with those in-between threats? You talked about it.
So that in-between threat, that's the one that's gonna be very difficult. So we look at every threat based on any number of factors, okay? The specificity, does this, who's making a threat? A lot of times it's difficult to determine who's making that threat. We've got a lot of dirty tricks we have in law enforcement. We can figure out who's making anonymous threats, okay? That takes us time to do that, okay? Basically that in-between threat that we can't quite say it's a hoax or can't quite say, well then we're gonna say, hey guys, we don't feel comfortable in keeping the schools open, or hey guys, we need to do we need to do something limited today. My point is we're gonna look at every one of them. Every one of those is gonna be weighed. They're never easy, they're never fun, they're never nice, okay? But I want you to rest assured that you give me your children during the day. I mean, it's like it's my kids, okay? I have 2 grown kids now, but your kids are my kids during the day, and I'm not going to do anything that would put your kids, there's nobody in this room that would put your kids in danger, okay? So we're gonna make sound decisions based on specific articulable facts and not fear. Okay, drills. There's a lot of concern about what do we do with drills here in the district. And this I will tell you that all of the drills I will run what I call lockdown drills or active shooter drills, okay? Primarily, what I want to do is get the staff and the students, I want them to have that muscle memory so that they know where to go and they know how to behave. I will never fire off guns while your kids are in school. I will never have fake blood while your kids are, we will not scream, we will not yell. Everything, I find no training value in that. I do when I'm working with the guys in blue, when your kids are not here and we need to maybe do some different things and train the fire department on how to handle casualties. We will not do that while your kids are in school. If we do, we'll ask your older kids if they want to participate in that, but we will also give you heads up that we're going to be doing these drills, okay? The idea is not to traumatize the kids or the staff. It's a frightening thing, okay, no matter how you slice this, but it is something that they must know how to do if something like this, I want our kids to be prepared. It's, be prepared, not scared. I don't want to scare them. We're going to do everything we can not to scare them, okay? 2 other things that I want to emphasize. Yes, ma'am?
Are drills done quarterly?
Drills are done as much as if you've ever tried to get a bunch of schools together to do training outside of what they're trying to get done, it's very difficult to do. So, drills are done on a lot of different levels, okay? Where it's involving your kids, most likely you'll get drills done once in the fall, once in the spring. And if I can squeeze another one in there, I will. But I'm also doing tabletop drills with my administrators and my staff. We're working on the Raptor Alert without having the kids go into the hide position. It's hard to put kids in hide positions. When we do put them in hide positions, we'll put them in maybe for 10 minutes. Because I want them to understand that it's not a joke, you shouldn't laugh, I need you to be quiet. And that's the types of things that we're teaching these kids, okay? We use school threat assessment teams here. I told you every threat is addressed. We have all types on these teams that we can sit down together and determine. We want to try to be as proactive as we can, okay? So we are constantly looking. If there's a kid that is maybe in a mental health crisis, or a kid that's fascinated with school shooting, or if there's a kid that's making violent threats, we are going to address that immediately. And we're going to address it every time. We're going to address it with a multifaceted team of social workers, psychologists, teachers, security dude. The police will sometimes be involved, and I sometimes need you to be involved, okay? Because I need to find out, a lot of kids don't want to talk about some things. I need your help. I need to know that if a kid makes a gun threat, I need to know, does that kid have access to guns at home? Okay? And I'm going to ask you that. And it's not because I think your kid's a criminal, or I think you're a criminal, or I don't like guns. I love guns. We're going to have these discussions, okay? I'm just speaking very plainly with you. I need your help. I tell the kids I need their help. I need your help in making sure these kids understand what we're trying to do to keep everybody safe. Okay, it's just that simple. Finally, report concerning behaviors. Okay, nobody loves to talk about concerning behaviors, but we don't look at a kid and go, there's a kid that's going to be a problem. Okay, we look at demonstrable behaviors. Some of the things that we see that are concerning is a kid that's fascinated with school shootings. School shootings are kind of interesting. Okay, and some kids like to read up on them because they have an interest in that sort of. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a kid like the kid down in Georgia recently that built a shrine in his bedroom and had pictures of former school shooters. Whenever we see that, we are going to investigate further and find out what's going on. We're looking for a number of things. Interpersonal relationship, unsuccessful interpersonal relationship. If you have a child or you know a child that's having a very difficult time and is constantly resorting to violence, believes that violence is the only answer, it doesn't mean the kid is a bad kid or is going to be a violent shooter, but we are going to talk to that child and find out what's going on, okay? And we have things in place that we can help that. We want to help the kid before we get into a situation, you know? I mean, it's like we always used to say in the FBI, we have to be right every time, okay? We have to be right every time. The bad guy has to be right one time. And so we're trying to stop that one time, and we're working very hard to do that. That's all I have for you. I'm going to be available if you have questions, and I can always be reached. I will be around, and then I'm going to be followed up by Ms. Stewart, who's going to tell you a little bit about how we communicate with you when we have one of those bad days. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Christine Stewart, and I am the Coordinator of Community Relations, and I'm hoping to provide a little bit of insight about what happens and how we get the message out to our families and our staff about what's going on in our schools. So as you heard from Mr. Gessford, we spend a lot of time communicating internally and making sure that we're all on the same page. So my job then is to extend that communication to make sure the parents and guardians and staff understand what's going on. So the first thing is there are scenarios where we do communicate and we send information out. And it's a very fine line because I liken it to the story of the boy who cried wolf. You don't want to send out an alert every time, as somebody I recently said on social media, every time the squirrel sneezes, that you don't want to send out an alert. But basically, if there is something that is going to become disruptive of the education of our students, or it is going to cause distress to our parents and guardians, we are going to communicate it. And these are just some of the examples of where you would get an alert during the day from us. And that's another thing, is we have worked hard this year, and we last year, as most of you know, we have moved to the platform called Parent Square. And we have created a communications plan that states only information that is going to be considered an emergency is going to be communicated and sent out during the school day to our parents. So if our parents are getting an alert during the school day in Parent Square, they should know that they need, if there is a phone call, pick up that phone, listen to the message. If there is an alert or an email that comes through, there's something happening. And it may not be the worst case scenario. It could be something like there's a weather-related issue going on. It could be a power failure that is causing a disruption in the school, and maybe the phone lines are down as a result, and here are alternate ways that you can get in touch with the school office. If there is an evacuation due to an emergency, whether it be due to an active shooter situation, or it could be a fire or some kind of a weather alert. Threats, and this is the big thing that we kind of struggle with, is the threats that are causing a disruption or have an online presence. So if we are alerted and we're getting phone calls in our school building offices, and our secretaries and principals are getting phone calls and saying, my child just saw on Snapchat that there is this threat, what do we do? And if this phone call is happening more than once, and we are seeing this being shared on social media, not only as will we investigate it and we're involving our law enforcement partners, we're also saying, okay, we need to put something out to make sure that our families understand that we are addressing this. And in all of the situations that we've dealt with so far, we've been very fortunate that there's no credible threat to what they've been saying. And what we do ask is that if you do see a threat online, or your child shares something, something comes over in a text or Snapchat, that you, instead of sharing it on social media and putting it out there and saying, does anybody know about this? Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Please just share it with the school district. Call me, call Ben Gessford, call your building principals, and we will take it from there. By sharing it on social media, it kind of feeds into the frenzy. And a lot of times there are things that are added to it which kind of makes the investigation go a little bit longer. Yes, ma'am?
Sometimes those come up in the evenings.
Yes.
And after hours or on the weekends, and there's nobody to contact.
Yes, we have an answer for that. So for those of you who are at home that are listening, that said, what happens if there's a threat that comes through in the evening and there's nobody in person in the offices? We have an online tip line, and it's the Safer Ohio Schools tip line, and it's in the handouts that we have I've printed out for you. It's also on our district website. It's in the Find It Fast. And you can just go in, there's an 800 number, and there is an online form. And what happens is you fill out exactly what you have. And I'm not sure, is there a way to upload like a screenshot, like an image? So if there's a screenshot, you can upload that, and that immediately goes, and we have people that are alerted to that threat. They investigate it, and if for some reason somebody doesn't immediately take care of it in our district, law enforcement is contacted. And so there's a rolling list of people that are able to address it even after typical school hours. So that's a really great question. If there's a transportation accident, even if it's a minor transportation accident, if it's a little fender bender, nobody was injured, we do communicate with the families just to let them know what happened and what the status is, especially if we have to switch buses. And if there is an unfortunate passing of a student or a staff member, and or something like a fire, even if it's a small little fire that was immediately put out by a fire extinguisher, we'll let you know. And the goal is because we know that cell phones immediately you'll hear something probably before the school district. So we're trying to work very quickly to get the accurate information out, and sometimes that's a struggle when we're fighting against 1,200 cell phones in a building. So, and then also obviously a lockdown. So in a lockdown, we have a timeline. Yes?
Sometimes, as a district, we'll send a call out at 3:30 or 4 about something that happened in a building.
Yes.
And then the principal will say, if you have questions or concerns, contact the office.
Yes.
But then we're leaving our families with no one to contact in that office until the next day. Are there ways that we can address that? Because we are giving parents information about maybe a situation that's concerning enough to contact them, but then nobody's left in the office until the next day to address concerns that they may have had.
Sure. We can in a situation like that, we can make sure that the message goes out before our broad, our 5 o'clock p.m. message. Sometimes we're kind of dealing with the running clock, and we try to get it out. By the time we have everything ready to go, it's dismissal time already, but that's,
one of the things in terms of
yes.
people appreciate hearing about it, but then
we can definitely address that. So we went through a situation, if you were here a couple years ago, where we had a swatting and we had a real lockdown. And it was scary. We were all scared because we didn't know, we assumed the threat was real and Officer Davis was right on it when it was happening, but we were in a lockdown. And immediately, there were a lot of, the trauma response kicks in and you start hearing things or seeing things and people are texting and then messages are going out to our families before we can get all of the facts. So I thought it might be helpful to outline how a crisis communication works. And so you understand that there are steps that we have to ensure to make sure the information we are sending out to our families is accurate, but also timely, and to reassure that our students and our staff are as safe as we can. So the important thing is when a lockdown is initiated, basically the law enforcement they're in charge. They're the ones who run the scene. If there's a threat, they're in charge of mitigating the threat, and then they begin the communications. Immediately, when we're in a lockdown, the staff's job is to make sure that they are accounting for all children, and then the administration is also making sure that they're accounting for all the staff members. So we know we can account for every single person that is under our care in this district. And that is going to take the longest step. So if you get a message from your child that they're in a lockdown, it can seem like an agonizingly long time before you hear from the district. But you have to understand that our job is, number one, to keep our students and staff safe. And it takes time to make sure that we can communicate that. Number two, what happens is the law enforcement then determines what is happening and what we can communicate and the plan that needs to go forward. If there is a reunification, they tell us, okay, we need to institute our reunification plans, and then we start going from there. Number three, the communication is created. So once we gather our facts, got a dry bubble in my throat. Once we gather the facts, there are two sets of communication messages that have to go out. Number one, we have to go to the staff. We have to tell the staff what's happening and what they need to do for the care and safety of the students in their care. Then the second thing is we have to create a communication that's sent out to the parents, and we will do that through Parent Square. Then we have a special, we don't use it very often, but there is in Parent Square, you will notice a different style of notification called an urgent alert. That will be an instantaneous message that will immediately go out as an all call, and it will be like a robot, a male robotic, like electronic voice. It will be a text, an app notification, and an email. And they're limited to 300 characters or less. And that allows us to use our predetermined templates, do a real quick message, and shoot it out to the parents to make sure that we can get that information to you quickly. We are almost always going to say, if we are in a lockdown, well, we will say, in a lockdown, please do not come to the school. You will not be able to get to the school because our law enforcement will make sure that this entire area, wherever that threat is locked down. And then we will provide you information, like we will provide an update within 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or we will give you instructions at that point. And then I have made a personal commitment, but as a district, we have made a commitment that we will provide you with updates frequently and as accurate as we have with the information that comes to us and the plan moving forward. We have worked very hard on this to create a crisis communication plan and how this looks in a scenario like this. And the methods that we are going to post the information out will be on our website. We are not going to use social media, and the reason being is that social media can be very tempestuous. Number one, you're dealing with an algorithm where it may not reach a lot of people. Like I've heard recently, because of The political people paying for political ads right now, those posts are being pushed to the forefront of people's feeds, and other non-paid advertisements are being pushed back. Also, it becomes really hard to moderate comments, and the comments can get really scary because people will then say, well, I heard XYZ, I heard ABC, I saw this, I saw that, and then people start sharing and adding things, and we will not have the manpower at that point to moderate those comments. Even if we turn off the comments, there's not 100% foolproof way to remove the comments in a Facebook post or Instagram. So I'm just telling you right now, we will not share on social media. So it will be the website and it will be Parent Square. So I want you to be assured that we have a robust communication plan in place, and our goal is to make sure that you feel safe in knowing that your students are safe with us, and we have plans and action steps ready to go should a bad day really happen here. And I wish there was a nicer way to transition to this, but I am pleased to present Officer and Student Resource Officer Ted Davis.
Am I allowed to take this out?
No.
No?
Yeah, you can.
I'm going to make him mad. Good evening. A little bit of background about myself. Come January, it will be 20 years for me on the police department. I spent the first 15 years in patrol. I moved to the Detective Bureau for 2 years, where I did, we called it the Person's Desk, investigated sex crimes and assaults against people, which helped me to transition to being a school resource officer. Just want to talk briefly about what my job is here at the school. Since the hiring of Mr. Gessford last year, my job has become 1,000,000 times easier. Basically, I just get to walk around the school and hang out with the kids all day. I work with administration, the staff, the principals, and Mr. Gessford to ensure that the students learn in a safe environment. I build and maintain healthy relationships with the students. We try to keep away from that adversarial relationship. There are some kids that have grown up and not the best relationship with the police, so we try to show them police in a different light, that we are human too, and we're just normal people like them. I'm in the unique position of just being a friend to some of the students here. I can provide counseling to the students with my background. And sometimes students don't like to talk to teachers or a guidance counselor. They'd rather talk to me. If they need some help, I can offer them help and might be able to give them some counseling. And just having the police officer in the school is a deterrent. Seeing that police car in front of the high school every day, if a bad guy's driving by, just seeing that police car might change their mind about doing something bad to the school. A lot of people think that I get involved in school discipline. I do not. I'm a firm believer in the school handling the discipline. With that being said, if there's a large fight, if there's a drug problem, then it becomes a legal issue, and I do get involved. However, 99.9% of the time, the school will handle any discipline. 22 schools in Cabo Falls, quite a lot of schools. We kind of split the city up in half this year, using Graham Road as a dividing line. Officer Dennis, who spent many years here in Cabo Falls, he's in charge of Woodridge schools. He has Woodridge, CVCA, and Walsh Jesuit. Some of Christian's also up there, so his hands are full. I have all the schools south of Graham Road. That includes IHM, Redeemer, Cheney Learning Center. Most of my time, however, is spent here at the high school. When I was hired as the SRO, Chief Jack Davis stressed school safety. It was absolutely paramount and number one to him, that the schools are safe. So working with the schools, we have extra jobs where you will see a police officer multiple times during the week at Bullock and at Roberts. We also have police officers now that will go to the elementary schools. Also during the day, officers are required by the day shift supervisors to stop into the schools. We call them shift checks. So you will see police officers park their cars, walk around the buildings, walk into the schools. I know the principals and the teachers really do appreciate it. Someone brought up last year that they didn't like seeing the police cars at the school because they thought something bad was happening. That's usually not the case. Police officers like stopping into the schools, talking to the kids. Some of the programs we do during the school year, that top one, that's the big one. Not me, I'm drug-free. We do that to the 5th graders. We've been doing that for 12, 13 years now. Where we talk to the 5th graders about the dangers of using and abusing drugs. Captain Merton came up with this one this year, Buckle Up with Brutus. I wasn't too excited about doing it, but it actually turned out to be a lot of fun. We went to the 3rd graders in all the schools, and we taught them about how to buckle up in the car. And apparently we did so well that the state came and filmed our Richardson talk. And sometime this year that'll be released through the state of Ohio, so I'll be looking for that. We do these online safety assemblies throughout the year, and then we do additional classes throughout the school. To me, the big one we start when they're young, we do safety time at the natatorium, and that's an absolute blast, where we get to talk to the incoming kindergartners. And it's amazing to me, watching a dentist, how many kids remember him from 9, 10 years ago. So that's a huge deal. So if you have young kids, make sure to sign them up for safety time at the natatorium. It's actually a lot of fun for a week. We hammer home all the time to the kids. If you see something, say something. There's 1,300 kids here at the high school. Obviously, we can't see everything. So if the kids see something, we want them to say something to us. We hammer over and over again to follow the policies that have been implemented. I know Mr. Gessford's goal is to be a school district that other schools call. Hey, how do you guys do this? I saw you guys started that program a year ago, and I think we're well on our way to doing that. We are definitely trendsetters in school safety. One of the biggest issues we have in the schools, especially here at the high school and Bullock and Roberts, is vaping. And it's not just a problem in Cuyahoga Falls, it's all the schools. My oldest son graduated from Hogan last year, and it was a problem at Hogan. So don't think it's just Cuyahoga Falls. If you're worried about your child is vaping, some things you might want to look for: dry mouth or cotton mouth. They always seem to be dehydrated. Strange purchases online. I did this the other night. I looked. Actually, it's extremely easy to go online and purchase vapes that have Delta 8 and Delta 9. They ask for your birth date, and you can lie and put in a birth date. It's that simple. Frequent nosebleeds, unexplained and dry coughing, throat clearing, and mouth sores. Unexplained sweet smells. The people that are doing these vapes, they target them to young people because they taste and smell good. So if you walk into your child's bedroom and there's a sweet smell and there's no food, investigate it. Unusual flash drives or pens. I know last year we had a situation here at the high school where one of the students actually had a writing pen and he was vaping in class and the teacher caught him. And we looked at the vape, and to be honest, it was kind of cool. But he was vaping in class. So look for unusual flash drives, pens, and unexplained charging cords. Like I told my 18-year-old, well, he was 17 at the time, you're still in my house, I have access to your bedroom. Everything in your bedroom is mine, including your cell phone. There's a slang that kids use, Addy, VG for vegetable glycerin, found in e-juice or sauce, called getting nicked, the euphoria, I think the high doses of nicotine. I've heard it a couple times here. I'm nick sick. Watch what your kids are doing online. I'm not a big social media guy, but my wife is. So the rule was, if my kids wanted any kind of social media, they had to add my wife as a friend. So she has access to any TikToking, Snapchatting that they're doing. So kids, believe it or not, they'll post online what they're doing. So yeah, if it's a phone you're paying for, even though it's their phone, technically it's your phone. You should have access to their code. You should be on their social media accounts so you're aware of what they're doing. Watch for anxiety, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and loss of appetite if you think your child's vaping. If they were a really smart student and all of a sudden they're starting to struggle a little bit, look into it. I was in the same position where you watch your kids. Yeah, if you see a change in their behavior, look into it. Trust that gut instinct. Vaping stats, just look down at that bottom right-hand corner. This is the one that's hard to follow along with. Disposables. Vapes, very easy to hide, very easy to conceal, and once they're done, they just throw them away. So maybe a good idea, take a look at the trash cans in your kid's bedroom, see what they're throwing away. There are vaping consequences. The school institute disciplinary action, and they follow the policy according to the district. And the school can test for THC in the vapes. And if we do get that test result back and it is positive, we can refer them to our youth diversion program. Now the benefit with that is, technically, yes, they are being arrested. If they follow the program though, everything kind of just disappears. The good thing for parents though is we can set a mandatory drug testing where your child has to come in once a week, once every 2 weeks, and they have to do a urine test. And that way we can keep up with them to see if they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. Securing firearms in the home. Unfortunately, we talked about school shootings. A lot of times those school shooters, they bring guns from the house. Easy access. So please, lock up your firearms if you have firearms at home. It's discouraging when you talk to a parent and you ask them, are there guns in the home? And they say yes. Are they secured in a safe? No. Are they loaded? Yes. Now I get it. You want to protect your home, protect your wife, protect your children. It's a catch-22, I guess. Can you go back to that previous screen real quick, please? Oh, you're fine. 1,300 children younger than 18 years of age who die every year from shootings, accidental shootings. 1 in 3 families with children in the house have at least one gun in the house. Most of the victims of unintentional shootings are boys. They're usually shot by a friend or a relative. A story I tell, and it's not funny, but back then, my dad was a police officer and he had a 38 snub-nosed revolver. He did not know that my brother and I knew where that gun was. So if mom and dad left the house, we played with that gun. So we were lucky. Adolescents are at a higher risk of suicide when there's a gun in the home. Parents, we often believe that our kids would never play with a gun. Sometimes that thought crossed my mind as a police officer. My sons will never do that. They know those guns are dangerous. They're not going to touch them. I lock my firearms up at home all the time. People think that the non-powder guns, BB, pellets, and paintball guns are toys, and they're not. They're just as dangerous. Can't tell you the amount of times you pulled over somebody and they've had a paintball gun, a BB gun in the car, and we yanked them out of the car at gunpoint. The BB guns, airsoft guns, they're illegal. Okay? So think about, or highly recommend getting a safe for firearm safety, safe for lock boxes for handguns. You can get the big safe for the long guns. You can get the gun trigger locks. I would suggest if you do have a firearm in the house, keeping the gun and the ammo separated. My safe at home is just fingerprint activated. We talked about if there's a crisis going on, sometimes you lose your dexterity. Just a fingerprint, put it on the lock, and it pops open right away. And with that, Supervisory Special Agent from the FBI, Dirker.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I'm the supervisor for the Akron FBI office. In Akron, we're located downtown here across from the Polsky building. The FBI office the Cleveland office is one of 56 across the country. Each of the 56 offices has satellite offices. Akron is one of those, okay? So I'm in charge of that office, and I have 6 counties in the area that kind of head all the way up to the lake. So it's my responsibility to supervise cases as they come in and dish them out to the agents and see them through to prosecution. The relationship that we have now with our local police is unprecedented. So I was a Cuyahoga Falls officer for 11 years before I joined the FBI, and I never saw an FBI agent in my 11 years as an officer here. Now we're very well connected. Chief Norris will tell you that I see him monthly at the chief's meetings. If he has an issue, he calls me, I call him, we text. Same thing with Chief Norfolk, all the chiefs, the sheriffs, anyone in the county, we all have immediate access, we all know each other. And a little bit of recognition for this school district in particular, when Mr. Gessford said they're forward-leaning, that can't be understated. So in the last couple of years, they've been having these parent meetings, and in the 6 counties that I supervise, we're starting to see more and more parent meetings, but this district was one of the first ones that I saw doing it, so it's credit to Dr. Celico and her staff. Very good job with that. So the things that I'm going to cover with you guys tonight are 2 things, and you can take pictures of any of these slides that you want, taking notes, write anything down that you want. And there's going to be some things that I'm going to tell you probably should take a picture of these slides. A couple of slides I'll specifically point out. So there's 2 things I'm going to cover with you. First thing is called sextortion. Who here has heard of sextortion? So many people have. There's sextortion, and then there's now these new violent online groups that are often referred to as 764. So believe it or not, sextortion is the less nefarious of the 2. So sextortion basically works like this. Your kid is on any platform, and they get a friend request from somebody, or somebody all of a sudden hits them up. So there's going to be a slide here that'll tell you that the majority of the kids that get hit up for this are boys. So I'll use the boys as the example. So 17-year-old boy sitting there on an app all of a sudden gets hit up with a picture. It's going to be a stock photo that the scammer pulled offline somewhere. And it's going to be of an attractive girl, roughly the same age, and she's going to offer to show body parts. And then he's going to get a picture of this alleged girl. Then she is going to ask him to send a picture. So they start exchanging photos. Well, now the boy sends a picture of himself, usually something neck down, to this female, and then the scammer will then threaten to release that photo to everyone in this kid's friend group, to include his parents, unless the kid sends money to the scammer. And usually these dollar amounts are $150, $250, $350, somewhere in that ballpark. They're very nominal amounts. So like any scam, what these people are doing is they are so convincing. So the scams that we see with the elderly are very convincing. These elderly people actually believe that the IRS is going to show up at their door and collect money if they don't mail a check. They're very convincing. Same thing with these scammers that are talking to your kids, talking to our kids. My kids are 19, 18, and 16. So it's the same thing. They're very convincing. And what they do is they scare them, they isolate them, okay? And they will make them think that there is no other option other than send this money, okay? So, covered all that. Sometimes they'll threaten violence. Usually it's just a simple threat like, do you really want your grandma? Do you want them to see this? Do you want me to send it to your friends, your parents? Everybody all blast this photo of you all over the internet. And thinking in that mind of that kid, they're scared. They don't want that to happen. So they're willing to do everything and anything. So, can you go back one slide real quick? So sometimes you'll see cases where there's it's just revenge or humiliation, but that's where usually it's financially motivated. Okay, good. So usually these people, we've run these cases down, we've linked them back mostly to Nigeria. Sometimes it's coming from India. We really don't see many sextortion cases that happen originating in the continental United States, okay? Which makes it difficult to kind of run these cases down because you're talking about reaching out overseas for a $350 crime. So we've tried as a whole to disrupt what we can over there, but your one-off, cases that your kid might fall victim to may not really go anywhere. So how do the kids react? So just like any scam, if they're scamming your parent or your grandparent, they're going to keep working them until they bleed them completely and totally dried out of money. I talked to a guy today on the phone, Cuyahoga Falls resident, who just finally said he ran out of money and they left him alone, okay? So It's just what happens. So they'll do this to your kid. So what is your kid gonna do? Sometimes they'll come to you and they'll tell you that this has happened. Sometimes they'll talk to the school resource officer or law enforcement. Sometimes they'll do self-harm, sometimes it's suicide. So I don't know if any of you have heard about the case in Streetsboro. It's very common now to know about this. That was a turn in a 24-hour period. So the kid was in great shape, everything was fine, and then all of a sudden he makes this bad decision and this person scams him, backs him into a corner where he thinks that there's absolutely no way out, and then his dad comes home and finds him on the floor. So when those parents, the Woods parents, came to the Portage County Chiefs meeting, they addressed the group, and these are two very, very brave and collected people. They came in and told their story. That very evening, I could not wait to get home from work. I called my 3 kids downstairs, and I said, look, and you need to have this conversation with your kids if you haven't. What I said to them, and you'll see in future slides, it kind of reinforces this. I told them, I would hope that you would not send a nude photo of yourself to someone over the internet. I would hope that you wouldn't do that. But if you do, and someone threatens you, come and see your mother and I, and we will help you. We will work it out. We will tell you that it's okay. It is okay. We can handle it. We can get past it. And I will show you guys in a later slide one way that we get past it, believe it or not. Okay, so average range for sextortion is 13 to young adult, mostly males, 15% females. I don't know where the gender unknown stat comes from, if that's just undisclosed in the statistics. Look at these monetary demands that these kids are getting backed into a corner over, this kind of money. And then a lot of times, similar to a lot of crimes, people just don't want to report them because of shame or embarrassment. So they just won't tell anybody, and then they just pay the money that goes away. In a lot of these cases, what we see too is the kid, we've had some where they've reported it to us as sextortion, where kid says that he got hit up by a girl, he sends a picture of himself, she gets it, and then tries to extort him. He's like, I'm not sending you any money. And then the sextortion person, they actually do blast that photo out to the entire friend group. They still do it anyway, and I'll get to a solution to that in a minute here. So, how do we handle this when this happens to our kids? So this is a little bit of a different approach that we have to take with them. If you caught your kid stealing, he gets brought home by the police because he shoplifted, you're going to want to put a foot somewhere, okay? This is very, very different, and I'm kind of a strict parent, raised by a cop. My dad was a cop and a Marine, so it was extra hard on me, so I became a cop and a Marine. I'm the same way to my kids. But in this particular case, we have to be very, very sensitive in how we handle these situations with the kids. If your child comes to you and they disclose to you that they've sent a photograph of themselves online to someone, you just tell them, you're not going to face any retribution, it's going to be okay, we're going to handle it. And I'm going to give you a resource on how to handle that. And as many people, if you can talk to your brothers, your sisters, other family members, friends that you talk to about this stuff, please communicate it to them, and please share some of these resources with them, because this can really help. So you have a delicate conversation with your kid, offer a plan and some solutions on how we are going to get through this, okay? It's not a punishment, it's I'm going to help you get through it. Because you're battling what the perpetrator is doing. So they're getting the pressure from the person who's doing the sextortion on one side, and then what's going to happen on the other side? The parent is also going to be hitting them. So they have no ally. Okay, so they need an ally. You don't know what this person told your son or daughter, because they're not going to tell you everything. Maybe they show you, if you're lucky, they show you the thread, but probably not, because it's a picture of them. So you have to be that ally for them. You have to be able to tell them, everything's going to be okay, I'm going to help you. What did this person tell you the consequences were? And then you just tell them it's not. When we talked to the students, I think it was last year, and I remember it was the juniors and seniors in the front row, and I said, you think that you're talking to this pretty 16-year-old girl who sent you this picture, but you're talking to a 48-year-old Nigerian guy sit behind a computer that's trying to scam you. And their eyes got really, really big. So if you can reinforce that message to them that no matter how convincing it may seem, it is a scam. Okay, they are scamming you. So that's sensitivity. Now this is where it gets really bad with these people. So these violent online groups, so where this came from is this new phenomenon called 764. So you'll hear me refer to a term called CSAM. What that is for us is it's just an abbreviation or acronym for child sex abuse material, which is basically a photograph of a minor, okay, that meets that definition of CSAM. All right, so here's what these guys do. So 764 is the last three numbers of the zip code of the kid that started this. So he was a 16-year-old living in Texas, and what he did was he targeted young girls, usually on this one it's between 8 and 17, as you see there, and they look for the vulnerable girls. They get the girl to send a picture. So then let's say there's three of us guys that are 764 guys, and we're all talking to three different girls. I'm telling my buddy here, hey, I got this 10-year-old on the line. I'm going to get her to send me a picture. So I get her to send me CSAM. Instead of extorting her for money, what I do is I extort her to cause harm to herself or worse. So what I'll do is say, I have this nude picture of you. If you do not make a cut in your leg and live stream it, I will send this picture out to everyone you know. So the girl or the victim will then do that. They will continue to do that until they max it out. Meanwhile, he tells his buddy, hey, I got this girl to do this. And he says, all right, let me see what I can do. He goes to his victim and maybe does something worse, like carve this name in your arm, or do this or do that. They will have these victims cause harm to family pets, do any other disgusting task that your imagination will allow, up to and including there's been cases of suicide. Okay? So, manipulation and control is the key. So, sextortion, think generally financially motivated. When you think of violent online groups, and 764 is like the generic name. It's like calling a tissue a Kleenex. There's so many different offshoot groups to these guys, Order of Nine Angels and others. These groups are also operating generally in the continental United States. So the groups that we are looking into with this are generally located in the United States. The good news with that is we have reach to grab them, okay, and get hands on them and disrupt them. So, you see what they do there on the left side? I covered that all the way down to the bottom. So that, yeah, they use the footage, they want that control. And like I said, a variety of names. And they're on publicly a variety of platforms. I mean, Discord, all these other ones, they're on all of those. And then, like I said, 8 and 17 is the target group. So, it's usually pretty easy to tell these guys who they're talking to and if the kids have depression and other issues. Like I said at the beginning, it's the vulnerable kids that they're looking for because they know that they can manipulate them. So they look for these things. And it's like I said with any other scammer, they are very, very, very good at what they do. It's their job. Like I said before, notoriety and status within their group. So we talked about swatting earlier. Does anybody not know what that means? Swatting is basically, it used to apply to like a school where you'd swat a school, where you would call in and you would say, hey, I'm going to go shoot up X school. And that was called swatting, and it was because a SWAT team would theoretically show up, and there'd be this massive police response. They'd all show up, guns out, ready to go, and then the SRO would walk out, or the school security would say, what's going on? They're like, we have an active shooter. No, we don't. That's swatting. Well, swatting has now graduated to, let's say that one of these guys is talking to Susie Smith, and he's able to get Susie Smith's address through manipulation. He'll make a 911 phone call to the local police saying, I'm Jim Smith. I'm gonna murder my wife, and then it causes this massive police response, they're ready to kick in the door because it's exigent, that's swatting. So it can be something as, you can swat a household, you can swat a school. It's basically a fake police response to a location. Doxing is basically, a lot of us, I don't have an online profile, but many people do. My name will appear in like court records, or somebody was trying to look me up for a presentation and they couldn't find it. Use University of Akron. She goes, I couldn't find you online. I found your name in an affidavit for swearing on an arrest warrant or something. It was public. But the more of a profile you have online, the more somebody can dox you. And that is basically searching you online and finding every detail out about you, where you live, all this other stuff, any personal information you put out there, collecting it, and just blasting it to people. They'll dox you, is what that is. So they can also threaten to dox the victim. Okay, so this is probably the most important slide you're going to see tonight. And I've had to practice explaining takeitdown.org to people. This is where you guys kind of get the power back. So I would hope that if you haven't had these conversations with your kids, you go home and you have these conversations with your kids, and you explain to them, like I said, I would hope that you wouldn't send that message, but if you do, come talk to me and we'll fix it. Talk to them about what apps they're on. We're seeing cases where kids are normal, regular thinking kids. They get in these chat groups and they start to get spun up and radicalized. And then they start acting really, really weird and odd behavior. We're dealing with that in some other jurisdictions where we're helping out some of the local police in a case like that, where a kid just got in this room and he just got spun up and radicalized. So kind of keep an eye on what they're doing. Be careful on the dating apps. Any online site, these guys are lurking around looking for opportunities. Don't post compromising photos, videos, or information about yourself online. So usually the example I give with this is you're in this long-term relationship, and even for adults, if you're in a 10, 15, or 20-year relationship, and you and your spouse are trading pictures of each other, that's fine until something bad happens in the marriage, and then now somebody has a nude of somebody else and can use that to extort them. So telling your kid, anytime you take a compromising photograph of yourself, and you give that to someone, you're giving that person a tremendous amount of power now over you. So the conversation you have with your kid is, here's the amount of authority and power there. Yeah, you think you're in love now at 17, but it's unlikely the relationship's gonna last, and you're giving this person all kinds of control. And with that too, it's be careful what you say, because if you say something insensitive, derogatory, racial to somebody on a text, and now they have that, they could dox you and blast that out. So it's all kind of in that same area. That goes for the kids and the adults. Now with AI, this even innocent pictures can be manipulated or misused. We don't know where AI per se is going to start taking us. But everybody's heard the cases where, people have these fantasies about certain actors and actresses, and then they're able to use AI to generate pornography and material like that. So just be careful how much you're putting yourself online, even innocent pictures, because those can be manipulated and misused. Privacy settings on social media accounts, use those. Friend requests, I tell people that if you don't know the person, just don't accept it. Just don't accept the request. Sometimes there's cases like we see this in the elder fraud kind of arena. There's a lot of these cases now where they're showing up at a house to do a pickup. So they say they're with the IRS or the FBI, and they tell the person to go withdraw money, and we're coming to pick it up. And sure enough, a courier will show up at the door and they'll do a money pickup. And we've had victims call us, local police have called and said, hey, this is happening. And we're like, we'll be right there. And we set up with them. We had one in Portage County where it ended up in a chase, and there were these two Indian guys that were ripping somebody off. So anytime somebody shows up at your house, call 911 if you believe there's any kind of a threat or somebody's coming. All right, so this is the important one here. If CSAM gets posted, what do you do? So in this particular example, your child takes a photo, they send it, they get sextorted, or a violent online group. They come to you and they say, Mom, Dad, I sent this photo. And you say, okay, where's the photo? You go to take it down this website here at necmec.org. You will take that photo, and that website will give you instructions on how to attach it. Okay, you're going to attach that photo. NECMEC doesn't care about the photo. They're not keeping the photo. They're keeping the hash value for that photo. Okay? Then, any time that photo gets trafficked over the internet, it gets disrupted. Okay? Because that photo is listed with all the providers now as being CSAM, and it automatically gets disrupted. So if somebody has that photo, so these 3 guys I was talking about earlier, they have it, they get the kid to send the picture, you go to takeitdown.org, he goes to store it in Google Cloud, transmit it anywhere else on the internet, Take It Down disrupts that. The other thing that does is when we execute search warrants on houses for cases where somebody was viewing CSAM, that is now a registered photo as being CSAM. Okay, so if people are trafficking in that, then we can get a hold of it. And the way that that happens is, if it's one thing for a person to have the image, send it over the internet and traffic it among people, but if one of those people saves it on a drive that's not touching the internet, they now have that photo. So then we get a hold of it if we scan devices and stuff like that and searches. So if that happens, your kid does that, go to that website, follow the instructions. There's another thing, cybertipline.org, 1-800-THE-LOST, those are all resources for NECMEC. You can also make reports on ic3.gov. I would encourage you guys to go to ic3.gov, and here's why. A lot of us in this room are kind of within 5 to 10 years of age of each other. So we're in this unique spot where we have kids as young as 10 to 20, and we have parents who are 65 to 85, 65 to 75. So we're at risk of our kids being hit by sextortionists, violent online groups, and our parents are susceptible to these scam artists, these guys in India that run these call centers that do nothing but fraud. You get the random text message from Amazon, your package pickup that you didn't send. You get the phone call. They go to a spoof website. A guy today had gone to a spoof website. He thought he was actually talking to a company that he does deals with, talked to a spoof website, sent them a bunch of money. Okay? Go to ic3.gov, read the scams that are on there, and understand what they are. Talk to your parents about scams. If they get weird phone calls, anybody's asking for money, have them call you, because once they get scammed, there's a lot of shame in there, and they don't want to disclose that. So make sure you're talking to your parents about online scams. Go there, read up on it. It'll probably take you about 45 minutes, drinking a cup of coffee to learn a bunch of stuff. Go to fbi.gov. There's also stuff on there. But definitely use the Take It Down as a resource. That should be it. Okay. So Christine put this.
Handouts are there, and I put that for the video, so people are.
Yeah, and you'll see the handouts here are phone safety, the firearm safety stuff, and the sextortion pamphlets. There's things on there and tips on how to protect your kids' phones and things like that. Are there any questions about anything I covered tonight? Pretty clear? Okay. All right. Who's up? Captain Merton?
Well, thank you to our speakers. Thank you for all of you for being here tonight. If we could just give a round of applause to all our folks here tonight. Thank you. And again, as always, if you have questions, hopefully this was beneficial. I know I have 2 young girls, and I'm listening to all of this too, and probably similar thoughts that are going through your heads, and the world that we live in today is a little bit different than when we were growing up. So please reach out to the schools, to my office, wherever we can help you, or whatever we can help you with. Please don't hesitate. So thanks again for being here, and thank you to our speakers.